This is going to be the final video of this project I've been working on. It's the Arduino epoxy casting. You can see what I'm trying to do here is knock down some of the edges that came up when I actually cast it. This sheet of sandpaper wasn't quick enough, so I got out my belt sander and I had to find kind of a good way to do it, but I found this is an effective method to hold it. There's a couple things that came out of the casting. One of them was that the edges of the casting sort of crept up, like the epoxy stuck to the edges, so there's these really high, sharp corners on each of the edges that I had to knock down. I started with an 80 grit there with the belt sander. This is 120 grit, just a regular paper sand, and you can see I've time-lapsed it here, but I was trying to knock down all of the scratches that I created with the belt sander. From then I went on to wet sanding. This is something that was actually kind of new for me. I'd done this on some kinds of paint before, but I looked up if you could do this with epoxy, and apparently it's quite effective. My plan was to go from the 80 to the 120 grit, and then I worked my way up from, I believe, 320 grit all the way up through 3000, and you'll see the different stages that I go through. I think I did 7 different grits total. It took me about, I would say, from beginning first that belt sanding all the way through the end of the wet sanding. I think I spent about 2 hours sanding total to get all the scratches out. Next I went to this automotive polish. I actually tried to do just a like turtle wax automotive polish, and I tried that with a rag manually, and it did not help at all. There was definitely, you know, little cloudy scratches left over from the end of the sanding process, and I found that this rotary drill pad with some polishing compound really did the trick. I spent maybe 15 or 20 minutes polishing up here with my drill to get all the to rub all the scratches out, and it resulted in this final product. I had it nice and squared up, and this is what it looked like. You can see I'm trying to get the light really on here so you can see how well that automotive compound really was able to buff out all of that cloudiness from the scratches. If you look close, I poured this in 2 layers. You can see there's that weird, you don't have to look that close, there's that weird kind of ripply boundary between the 2 pours that I did. I did that bottom pour so the Arduino would kind of float, and it wouldn't, or it would stick, so it would either sink to the bottom or float. I'm not sure whether it would float or sink in wet epoxy, but you can definitely see that in there. And on the backside you can see there's definitely some air bubbles below where the headers are soldered in. I'll have to figure out a way. I'm planning on doing more castings like this. I'll have to figure out how to not have that happen. Maybe, you know, dip them in epoxy or something first and then set them. We'll see. And but you can also see there's those boundaries again. If you look in the upper left there, you can see that kind of weird ripply wave. But if you look not that close, you can see there's definitely bubbles in the epoxy. It's definitely not a perfect pour. I don't have a vacuum chamber, so I can't pull all the bubbles out like you probably see a lot of people do. But for the first pour, I think it actually went pretty well. I'm happy with how it turned out, and it's sitting on my desk now, sort of as a engineering or you know, kind of electrical project paperweight.